If you go off to the university, you need to get involved in a campus ministry with like-minded Christians to fellowship with them. It's absolutely necessary in our secular nation.
One thing I wanted to ask you too, Dr. Mike, is, you're on a college, you have a lot of your students, they're young. And we hear in our generation that there's a lot of Gen Z, millennials are turning away from the faith. So what is your experience when it comes to, working, teaching, leading this next generation? What are their thoughts? What are some of the things you're hearing about those that are younger in their faith?
You're right, Sydney. There are a lot of college students who have been brought up in the church. They are believers, and they, the term used for it now is they deconstruct their faith. They walk away from their Christian faith, and it's a sad thing. I think there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, they're brought up in church to believe based on experience, based on, well, this is what the Bible claims about itself, and we have faith. And they're not really ever taught that there are reasons, intellectual reasons for thinking and believing that Christianity is true, that there's actually evidence for the existence of God, philosophical evidence, there's scientific evidence for an intelligent designer of the universe and of life itself. And there are many of the most elite, some of the most elite scientists in the world are Christians and are convinced by the scientific evidence that it points to a designer of the universe and life. And then you look at the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. They are just not aware that this kind of stuff exists because they're not taught it in truth. Christian apologetics, they're not even aware of such a discipline. So our churches need to be better at equipping and teaching our youth about these things so that when they go off to college or secular university, where their faith is definitely going to be attacked, they are ready for it. Another thing is when they go off to the university, they need to get involved in a campus ministry where they are fellowshipping with like-minded Christians. A few years back, I've been to Israel twice, and I've been there on the Sabbath and the day approaching it. So like on Friday afternoon, I was in both times I was in a marketplace in Jerusalem, and Israel is very secular, but Jerusalem is not. Jerusalem is, you've got a lot of pious Orthodox Jews there. Anyway, as the Sabbath is approaching at sunset on Friday, just before that in the afternoon, in the marketplace, all these people are gathered, and there's this really friendly atmosphere, one of excitement, kind of like what we have when it's Christmas Eve. And it's just, there's this anticipation, hey, the Sabbath is coming, it's going to be here soon. And you can really get carried away in this. And then you go to the Wailing Wall when the Sabbath comes, and all these pious Jews are there, and it's like, whoa, this is just so cool. And you get thinking, wow, if I weren't a Christian, I could really get involved in this because there's this pull toward it. And if you are a skeptic, an atheist, that is, in Jerusalem, in Old City Jerusalem, on the Sabbath, you're going to feel really out of place, and you're going to feel a draw in that direction. Well, it's the same way over here in the West, but in the opposite direction. We have a secular nation that has ethics that many of which are very anti or counter-Christian. Counter-Christian, even anti-Christian. If you hold to ethics, let's say sexual ethics and ethics on marriage that go against the biblical worldview, the biblical ethics, you are in a minority. You are going to be mocked and called homophobic and transphobic and all these kinds of things. And this especially, all your television shows, it's not just our culture, it's everything that's part of that. It's on social media, It's in the entertainment industry with movies, and like every show on television has your token LGBTQ plus person now. And all this stuff going on, and it's just propaganda. It is trying to minimize these things, and it does happen over time. It's like, hey, back in the 50s, you really didn't see this glorification of relationships, same sex, or even adulterous relationships, or all these people having sex prior to marriage. And we've grown so accustomed to seeing these things on television and in movies glorified, like these great romances that you hook up and you have sex and sex relationships before marriage. It's nothing now to see this kind of things. We get kind of conditioned to see it. And it's the same thing with the LGBTQ plus stuff that's going on right now. And you start to get empathetic, even sympathetic to these kinds of things. And we become part of that culture. And so our morals go down. And so that's why if you go off to the university, you need to get involved in a campus ministry with like-minded Christians to fellowship with them. It's absolutely necessary in our secular nation.